The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has released a video showing a Russian tank being destroyed, and the country reports that 3,016 Russian tanks have been lost since the start of the war. The ministry's Twitter account shared the video on Tuesday. The footage opens with a long-distance view of a tank billowing smoke and clearly on fire, then gives a closer look. About 550 of those soldiers died between Christmas Day and Boxing Day, according to the report. 5 Russian tanks were also destroyed during that period. It said, adding to a tally that has topped 3,000. Ukrainian and Russian officials have been contacted for comment. It comes after Russian President Vladimir Putin said that the vast majority of Russians were willing to sacrifice their lives for their country. In the close-up, the tank can be seen burning and heavily damaged. Later in the video, several soldiers can be seen walking through a wooded area and experiencing an apparent strike of some kind. That section of the video was set to jaunty music, and the soldiers were apparently part of the Russian forces. Every Russian tank will definitely find a Ukrainian soldier who is going to knock it out, the defense ministry tweeted. The ministry also shared its figures on Russian combat losses since the beginning of the war in February. Those numbers showed that Russia has lost 3,016 tanks to date, as well as 103,220 personnel and 6,024 armored combat vehicles, among other losses. The video showing the tank's destruction comes as the UK Ministry of Defense reported on Tuesday that Russia's First Guards tank army were probably amongst the Russian forces recently deployed to Belarus. This formation was likely conducting training before its deployment and is unlikely to have the support units needed to make it combat ready. It continued. Over the last 48 hours, fighting has remained focused around the Bakhmut sector of Donetsk Oblast and near Svatov in Luhansk. Russia continues to initiate frequent small-scale assaults in these areas, although little territory has changed hands. Since October, Russian forces have largely focused on constructing defensive positions along much of the front line in Ukraine, Britain's Ministry of Defense reported on Monday. This includes laying additional fields of anti-tank and anti-personnel mines, almost certainly going beyond Russian doctrinal guidelines, the ministry said in its latest intelligence update. Minefields only present an effective obstacle for trained troops if covered by observation and fire. A major challenge for the Russian forces will likely be a shortage of surveillance assets and trained personnel to effectively monitor large areas of the new minefields. Putin also said Russia was ready for talks to end the war in Ukraine, even as the country faced more attacks from Moscow. Russia lost hundreds of troops and at least 5 tanks over Christmas, according to Ukrainian officials. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported on Monday that at least 102,600 Russian soldiers have died since Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine in February. Russia is prepared to negotiate some acceptable outcomes with all the participants of this process, Putin said in a state television interview, according to the Associated Press. The UK Defense Ministry reported that the supposedly elite First Guards tank army took heavy casualties earlier in the war, including during the retreat from Kharkiv Oblast in September 2022. It has now been partially reinforced with mobilized reservists, although remaining well below its authorized strength of 25,000 personnel, the ministry said. On Monday, the Institute for the Study of War, or the ISW, noted in its latest assessment of the ongoing war in Ukraine that Russian President Vladimir Putin is likely concerned over the lack of support for his war in Ukraine among members of Russian elites. Citing a speech Putin delivered to the Russian people on Christmas Day, in which he criticized some Russians for not acting like true patriots, the ISW said Putin's instant criticism of some members of society suggests that he is focused on those who do not fully support the war rather than on those who do. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned his people not to let down their guard as the year comes to a close, because Putin will be trying to compensate for his losses. There are a few days left in this year. We must be aware that our enemy will try to make this time dark and difficult for us, Zelensky said in his nightly address.